NASCAR and Formula One going directly head to head with one another in terms of the timing this weekend, both around 3 or 3:30 on Sunday. Josh, I understand you were calling the race for Formula One, so you didn't get to catch any of a NASCAR race. Brandon, you watched the NASCAR race, so you didn't get to catch any Formula One. So this is going to make kind of an interesting discussion here. A general consensus, at last I checked, the Jeff Gluck poll was trending upwards of 94, 95% yes. An absolutely fantastic barn burner at Kansas Speedway, whereas Miami, Max Verstappen won again. He did have to come through the pack to do it, but fans seem to think that this is a race where we look at the atmosphere and being in Miami as the main positive, whereas the action on track, maybe not so much. So, Josh, I guess I'll start with you from your perspective. What do you make of this Miami Grand Prix experiment 2 years into it?
I think, I've got two views on this. From people who watched the race, they say it was incredibly dull and how boring it was, and there wasn't many overtakes as well, and it was not a great procession. But from the journalists I've spoken to and the commentators I've spoken to over the past 24 hours, they all say they actually enjoyed the race. There was a lot going on to talk about from a commentary point of view in terms of strategies getting extended, team orders being in play with Mercedes and Hamilton as well, and Russell. Hamilton being told to let Russell through because he's on a different strategy. There was a lot to talk about in terms of the qualifying format as well, with a displaced grid. And there was just so much going on during the race. So from a commentary point of view, I really enjoyed it. And I don't understand why everybody was going back last night and saying, oh, it was actually bad. Then I watched it again this morning. I watched the Channel 4 highlights, which takes the F1 TV commentary feed. And I can see as a viewer, it was really a dull race. And there wasn't that much action to talk about as well in terms of there was a long process of that for the last 15 or so laps. Nothing happened. That's very unusual in Formula One. And I must admit, I was kind of thinking we were going to have a great race with the way the grid was set up, with Leclerc down in 7th after causing the red flags. We had Perez on pole, Alonso 2nd, 3rd on the grid as well, coming for was it Russell? And then we had 4th for Magnussen. So I thought this is going to be a great race. Brilliant. And we had Verstappen down, Leclerc down in positions, but no, it all rectified quite quickly. So I think the whole Miami experience is a wonderful party atmosphere. It's a wonderful event to commentate on, but the racing is lack. And I don't know whether that's because of the cars, because this new formula has been such a failure with the regulations, or it's the track's fault. I'm giving it that it's the car's fault, not the track, because if Formula E showed us anything this weekend, Formula E at Monaco got 116 overtakes and was one of the best races of the season. Miami got less than 100 overtakes in the race. So, yeah, I think it's the car's problem as well. And the Pirelli tyres, they're too hard. Could have gone maybe a step smaller on the compound. The DRS shortening zone as well. There's a load of things that aren't working in Formula One right now. But we've had worse races in Formula One. And I've got to admit, I think going into the next couple, we're not going to see decent racing. We won't see Imola because it's too small a circuit. Monaco in Formula One cars at the moment, you're joking, unless it rains. So, and Spain was boring anyway. So you're going to have to wait until Austria to get another great race, which is a sprint race, because I don't think we're going to see that much in Canada, because I usually champion Canada. I love that track, but it's too similar to everyone else. It's another street circuit. So not until Austria with a sprint race nearer July are you going to see an actual good race.
Brandon, I want to get your take on the NASCAR Cup Series race, because I think a lot of people, certainly by the metrics of the Gluck poll, are seeing this as a race of the year candidate and maybe an all-time classic. What was your take on it?
Yeah, absolutely. This one kind of had everything for you, I guess. And I mean, it even broke a track record, 38 lead changes at Kansas Speedway. That's not something I ever thought I'd hear, but it was fun to watch it play out. Just a ton of passing for the lead. And if that's your cup of tea for a Cup Series event, then you had a blast on Sunday afternoon. And also, if you like people punching people in the face, well, you got that too. Ross Chastain punching Noah Gragson after a little discussion there. Apparently, this has been going on for a while between these two, but it escalated yesterday afternoon. And then you get this Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin battle at the end, two greats going at it, and kind of the top four being fast all day. And again, Bubba Wallace having a great run as he did win last year there at this track. And Tyler Reddick still doing well for 23:11. I mean, all sorts of things going on. But the end of Denny Hamlin deciding to off Kyle Larson more or less there on the back straight going into 3. A lot of good runs there from the Cup Series and the Truck Series off the back straight into 3. But I typically don't put Kansas Speedway on the list of places where a lot of cool things happen, but it really did this Sunday afternoon. And so, no, I wasn't one of those that decided to do the channel flipping back and forth, as it were. So I stuck with the Cup Series this Sunday, and I think we were rewarded for it.
Well, of course, if people watched yesterday's show, they'll know the opinion that I share of it. NASCAR comprehensively outperformed Formula One this week from an entertainment standpoint. And I'm with you, Josh. I'm certainly not going to go so far as to say, oh, that was one of the worst races I've ever watched. That's on par with Spa 2021 or anything like that. I thought it was an okay race. There were certainly some strategic elements. You had Max having to come through the field. It's not like he won from pole and ran off and won by 45 seconds or anything. So there have certainly been more boring races in Formula One's history. But I think for them to get a race like this in this location, with this race being so hyped up, particularly here in the United States, and then to be going directly against NASCAR on a weekend where NASCAR put on one of the best shows we've seen in a mile and a half in a very long time, I think it's very unfortunate timing for Formula One. And it's going to be interesting to see. I don't believe the ratings are out yet. I've always believed that NASCAR is going to continue to dominate the total viewership, but it's the 1849 demo that the advertisers and marketing people really look at that's going to be a lot closer and a lot more interesting.